The Bible says not to boast about tomorrow because you don't know what a day can bring forth. But we should trust in the Lord with all our hearts and not lean on our own understanding. We certainly learned that lesson this week in our home. Follow along with us for another day in the life of our homeschool. This week started out for us just like any other average week. Lots of laundry, meals to be made, lessons. My daughter here has been working on sewing a skirt. She learned in co-op how to sew her own skirt, and so she's just been making a couple of them, and it's really fun to watch her just grow in this area. If this is your first time on my channel, I want to take a minute to introduce myself. My name is Sherry. I'm a homeschooling mom to 10 kids, ages 19 down to 14 months. Our oldest is graduated. We have 7 in school and 2 that are preschool. I'm married to my high school sweetheart, Nelson. We've been married for almost 24 years. I'm a former public school teacher, and I love homeschooling our kids. I am someone who believes that motherhood is ministry, that homeschooling is an extension of parenting, and I just love coming on here every week, encouraging other moms in this incredible job that God's given us to raise up the next generation. Now, like I mentioned, it's been just an average week, just the normal, taking care of kids, getting everyone where they need to be, making meals, cleaning up. My husband's been working quite a bit this week, so that has seemed like something that's just been a little exhausting for some of us. But towards the end of the week, we noticed that our son, James, who's 9, just wasn't feeling very well. And at first I thought it was a virus, but we kept watching it, and it just seemed a little bit different. Turned out that he ended up needing to go into the emergency room, and it wasn't long that we were there that we realized he needed an emergency appendectomy. He had appendicitis, and it was a little bit more complicated than an average appendicitis because he had an abscess right next to his appendix. So he had the surgery, and my husband ended up staying with him in the hospital because I'm still nursing Ben, and I wasn't able to stay overnight. So it was a long couple of days, both of us just kind of taking care of what needed to be done, and we had so many people volunteer to help and call. It was so great. But this night, Nelson finally called and told me that James was able to come home. So I started making arrangements to go and pick them up at the hospital, and my daughters were just so wonderful because they slipped right in, took my place, and made dinner for us. And they're able to do this seamlessly because they're just at home with me so often, and they've seen me make this meal over and over again. And I was so thankful for them. They like cooking, which really helps. But they just took care of everything. They got the meal going. And then when I came back, it was all ready for us. You're going to see in this video that not everything is picture perfect. If you've been living with one spouse taking care and holding down the fort at home and then going back and forth, things can fall apart even with the best routines and efforts. But I wanted to just get a little shot of a video and just tell you about how good the Lord was to us this week in taking care of James and in helping our family. We had asked James what his favorite meal was so that when he came home that we could have it ready, and he told us he liked haystacks. So this is a really simple meal I learned from my mother-in-law. It's rice, ground beef, you put that on top, and then you put peas on top and then cover it with cheese sauce. So he wasn't really all that hungry when he came home, but it was kind of nice that we at least had this for him. And when we walked in the door and he was able to finally be home after being in a hospital bed, in a hospital room for several days, I think he was just so happy to just see familiar sights, to see the family again. And I was just so happy to have him back at home with us where we can take care of him. He can get a full night of rest without any of the beeping or people coming in, and we can just love on him and give him some good home-cooked foods. We're so thankful for how the Lord healed him and took care of him. We're also super thankful for the surgeons and how they just took such great care of our son. On the night he came home, our older kids actually had to leave for youth group. And when he walked in the door, they were already gone. And it was just him and me and Nelson and our little ones, Holland and Ben. So we got some really nice time alone in the quiet with him before all his siblings came home. We've been reading the book, The Wild Robot, and because he's been gone, he missed several chapters. So since it was quiet, I took the time to just sit down, and I have really missed him because I've been home with all the kids. My husband's been at the hospital this whole time. And although I've gone up to see him several times, we haven't had him at home. And I just treasured this alone time with him and caught him up on all the stories we were able to get actually up to where we are now. So this was really special. James was just so excited to see his siblings, and when you spend so much time together like you do in homeschooling, you just have a really close relationship. When you have something like this happen in your family, or even, for example, like when we would have a new baby, when my kids were all little, we would take a complete break from homeschooling, but since we have so many older kids, it's just easier for us to have them keep going because they're so independent, and this gives them something to do. It kind of keeps the family routine going. But over the years, we have developed a really relaxed routine, and I like to think of it as relaxed homeschooling. Our goal is always progress, moving forward every day. And so for the next few days, my priority is going to be taking care of James, getting him back to good health, taking care of the little ones, and then being available as my other kids need help. But we're not in a rush. We don't have any place in our curriculum that we have to be by a certain time. We can just take it easy, do a little here, a little there. I want to take a break real quickly in this video to tell you about a mini e-course that's launching Tuesday, April 16th called How to Take the Stress Out of Homeschooling. This is being put out by Kelly Crawford of Generation Cedar. I've been following Kelly Crawford for probably 10 years. She's been blogging since 2007. She's a mom of 11 with 23 years homeschooling experience. I can't recommend her enough. Everything Kelly writes about on her blog and shares is just excellent. And this mini e-course is going to be like having someone come alongside you and just help you navigate the waters of homeschooling. Whether you're a new mom or a veteran homeschool mom, this is going to help you avoid some of the common mistakes. It's going to be just a shot in the arm of encouragement. It will help you relax. Click on the link below in the description box to take a look at the first lesson for free and also to get on the wait list so you can get the course half off in the first 24 hours. I think for some families, if you have more of a school mindset, when something like this happens, it can just throw you into a tailspin because you're thinking in your mind, how far are we getting behind? What are we going to have to do to catch up? And you're just thinking of all the days you have to get in. Whereas if you have a relaxed approach to homeschooling, you can make the family your priority and just do a little bit as you're able to. One thing my husband and I were talking about recently is how homeschooling connects you to the past and the future. Rather than being in the same grade all day with people that are your same age, you spend a lot of time with people that are younger than you. And, when grandma pops in for the afternoon or for lunch, you spend a lot of time with people that are older than you. When you're out in the community or running errands, you're with people of all ages all day long. And I think the benefit for this is that when you see kids that are younger than you, it ties you to the future. You're thinking about your influence on them. When you're with people that are older than you, it ties you to the past. And you become aware not just of your generation and what's going on in your world, but what things were like for people who lived long ago and what you can learn from their life experiences. The story I was reading this morning to the kids from Farmer Boy just really reminded me of this conversation I had had with my husband. In the story, Eliza Jane and the 3 older kids in Almanzo's family were sent off to a boarding school for a week. And when they came home, Eliza Jane just kind of acted like a show-off, like she had learned all this stuff from getting a real education out in the world. So the oldest daughter, Eliza, makes this kind of rude correction of her father and how he's drinking his tea, and that's just not the way they do it anymore. And her mom just puts her in her place, reminding her where she came from and how much older people do know. She said, "Young lady, if you have to show off your fine education, you tell me where saucers come from." And Eliza Jane couldn't really answer, and she just gives her daughter this little speech and history lesson, just reminding her about how it's been done for the past 200 years. And she finishes by saying to Eliza Jane, "I guess a thing that folks have done for 200 years, we can keep on doing. We're not likely to change for a newfangled notion that you've got in Malone Academy." And she just reminded her daughter that just because you've gone to get a, quote, real education, don't forget the past. I think one of the great benefits of homeschooling is that you see outside of your age group and your time period. And you can think, it makes you think about the future. It makes you remember the past. It makes you see education as something that's part of life. You don't go to a special place to learn. You're learning all the time. I did get a little bit of work done. I think I did one reading lesson with William. I sat with Julia and we reviewed her math. But my older kids, they just did what they could on their checklists, and I wasn't able to spend as much time sitting individually with them today, and that's okay because it may not happen today, but it does happen, and there will be plenty of time for me to catch up with them. I still sit down with them throughout the day and catch up with everybody in other ways, but as far as their schoolwork, they were just working and doing the best that they could for today, and I'm okay with that. I think sometimes we forget how much our kids, in large part, are responsible for their own education. Yes, we teach them to read, we teach them the fundamentals of math, but once they get going, the goal is for them to be independent. It's not for us to be spoon-feeding them all the time. And they really are the ones that determine how far they go, how hard they work. So having them be independent is a good thing. I wasn't really sure what I was going to make today. This was kind of a last-minute decision. I ended up making a sausage dish with potatoes, which I feel like we've had a lot lately. And then we just put the leftover cheese sauce that I had made, or that the girls had made from the evening before with haystacks. We just kind of put that on top. It was really delicious. Even though we've had it a lot, I felt like it was kind of a good meal for James to have from just coming home. At first I was thinking about making a tomato dish with the sausage, but then I thought that would probably be too acidic. So I went with this sausage potatoes with the cheese sauce, and it was delicious. About this time, Afton brought her checklist to me, so I guess I kind of forgot. I did go over her checklist with her, and she was just telling me everything that she did for the day, and we were talking about some of the things she was reading about. So we did spend a little bit of time going over that. While I was making lunch, some of the kids started up a game of Skip-Bo. The nurses gave James this card game when he was in the hospital just to keep him busy, and he was allowed to bring it home. So they started up this game, and then James came over. I just love seeing my kids play together. This is a treasured memory. I love that they're growing up, spending so much time together. Now, if you watch my channel frequently, you know my kids have lots of friends. They have friends at co-op, friends at church, friends in the neighborhood. But these relationships, your sibling relationships, are lifelong. And so them growing up together and spending so much time together is priceless to me. When they're old, when they're 80 years old, you know, who are your closest friends going to be? Who's going to be there for you? It's your family. Family is a beautiful gift that God's given to us. When you give your kids the gift of a sibling, you're giving them a lifelong friend. We enjoyed this meal together, and afterward, James started working on a little project that he has for co-op. I told him not to worry about doing any work. He's just supposed to relax. But as soon as he gets bored or wants to do something, he can do a little bit. And he's making this toothpick bridge. These are the plants. Let me just show you that we planted a couple weeks ago and they are sprouting. So that was kind of fun to show him when he came home. He's making this toothpick bridge that's part of a science project for co-op. And this was something that he kind of wanted to do. He was feeling a little better at this time, and so he got started on that. One other thing that we did get done today was we did a nature study lesson on hyacinths, and I had Afton go out. We had this little hyacinth plant that was growing at the bottom of our walnut tree, and she cut just a couple stalks and brought them in, and we used this as part of our lesson for science today. Everybody got their sketchbooks, and we all went in the living room. James wanted to lay down for a little bit, so the kids huddled around our piano bench. They're not very picky, and they started copying and sketching the lilacs. I used 2 books for this. One is Anna Botsford Comstock's Handbook of Nature Study, and the other one is The Diary of an Edwardian Lady. This is one that is one of my favorite for nature study. I can put those below if you'd like to look at them. Sometimes I'll have them just look at the plant and copy it, but then I'll also give them these other books if they want to look at diagrams or try to copy from those. The Handbook of Nature Study has some great questions to ask, but it didn't have anything that I could find on hyacinths, so we weren't able to use that for this lesson. I continued reading The Wild Robot to the kids while they were drawing. When we finished that, I got out the Diary of an Edwardian Lady and had some of the kids read little excerpts from her diary. And if you've never seen this book, it's really one that's just adorable. And I think it's inspired my kids to keep their own nature study journals. Some of her excerpts include things like the first flower that she sees, or she saw frogs spawn down near the pond. So it makes them, after they read the little section, they just want to go and look for some of those things outside themselves. All in all, this was a very simple day. We really didn't do a lot. The kids just did a little bit of schoolwork. I did a lot of reading to them, just sitting on the floor reading. And a lot of kids were around me all morning. And that's okay for times like this. This is when we do just enough schoolwork to keep the kids busy, to give them something to do, but we're not trying to be anywhere. We're not trying to do 2 things at once. We're doing what's needed and important for everyone. If you like the content that you saw in this video, I want to invite you to take a look at another day in the life video I did a couple weeks ago, Ordinary Day in the Life of Our Homeschool, Every Moment Holy. Thank you for following along with us in our home. I hope you have a great week. I do 1 video a week on homeschooling encouragement for everyday moms.